in history. African Americans are a completely unique phenomenon as a people. They don't, who they are culturally, what their history is, what their experience is, isn't duplicated anywhere on earth. You know, you don't know where you came from. You don't know what country you came from. You don't know what culture you came from. You don't know what language you came from. You don't know what your religion was before, you know? And you, like I've said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Actually, your entire identity is American-based. That's not the case of anyone else.
Aborigine, which means what? Black folks. But you never find a white aborigine. Rather, aborigines are called natives, they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are aborigines, but you don't let them be called aborigines.
Everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants. You know? You're originally American, and your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You know, you're the indigenous people of the entity called America. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. You know?
Welcome, family, to Hidden History and Biblical Mysteries. Today, we uncover truths about our people that have been hidden for far too long. We're diving deep into controversial theories that challenge everything we've been told about our history and identity. Many researchers, including ourselves, have uncovered evidence that the majority of our people, African Americans, were not brought to the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade. Less than 5% of African slaves came to North America, with most being sent to South America and the Caribbean. The truth is, millions of our ancestors were already here when the Europeans arrived, but it goes even deeper than that. We, the people labeled as African Americans, are the true lost tribes of Israel, and this land, the Americas, is our actual promised land described in the scriptures. Let that sink in for a moment. Now let's look at the evidence. The similarities between the American West geography and our scriptures' descriptions are striking. Take Utah, for example. The Jordan River in Utah flows into the Great Salt Lake in Utah Lake, mirroring the biblical Jordan River's path to the Dead Sea and Sea of Galilee. But here's the kicker. Our Great Salt Lake is 5 times larger than the Dead Sea, and Utah Lake is 3 times the size of the Sea of Galilee. Remember those mighty cedars of Lebanon mentioned in our scriptures? They sound a lot more like the massive redwood trees of the Pacific Northwest than anything you'd find in modern-day Lebanon. The grand landscapes of the American West, like the Grand Canyon and these ancient forests, align perfectly with biblical descriptions. Many of our native tribes have oral histories that match biblical accounts, such as the Great Flood. Some researchers even suggest that the Grand Canyon itself might be evidence of this cataclysmic event. Our history is written in the very land we stand on. But why haven't we heard this before? Why has our true identity been hidden from us? The answer lies in the actions of the European colonizers and powerful institutions like the Roman Catholic Church. Upon discovering these lands and our people, they rewrote history to hide the truth. They've been playing both sides, controlling narratives to keep us in the dark. Let's take a closer look at the church's role in shaping our understanding of the world. While they're often portrayed as opposing scientific progress, the reality is more complex. The church has frequently supported scientific discoveries, even those that seem to contradict biblical teachings. Consider the case of Galileo Galilei. The popular narrative paints the church as Galileo's enemy, but in reality, Galileo was close friends with Pope Urban V and had support from many Jesuit scholars. The church's public opposition to Galileo's heliocentric model, juxtaposed with its private support, was a form of controlling both sides of the narrative. This pattern continues today. The Catholic Church, which claims to be a long-standing institution of faith, surprisingly endorses evolutionary theory as being compatible with Christianity. They even extend financial support for its research. But beneath this acceptance lurks a contentious figure, Charles Darwin. His work on evolutionary theory was indirectly funded by the Church. Similar to the case of Galileo, yet Darwin's theories, particularly macroevolution, face scrutiny for lacking solid empirical backing. Why then would the Catholic Church back research that appears to diverge from their teachings? It's a question that stirs the mind. Moreover, Darwin's theories have been embroiled in allegations of racism. The image before you depicting a comparison of skulls is a grim echo of such claims. It suggests a hierarchy of races, a concept that Darwin himself has been accused of propagating. This image, a silent testament to a bygone era of scientific racism, challenges us to reflect on the narratives we've inherited and the veracity behind them.
Okay, here I have a picture that comes from a book by a prominent psychiatrist in Germany in his 1903 book about criminal anthropology, where he shows the allegedly ape-like features of an Italian criminal. This is based on Cesare Lombroso's ideas. Lombroso was an Italian psychiatrist who founded what's called criminal anthropology, and he believed that criminals were a throwback, an evolutionary throwback, and thus he thought they would have physical features that were more like apes. And so the sloping forehead, the nose, that was considered ape-like characteristics that these criminals allegedly had. And there were also other Darwinists talking the same thing about mental illnesses, talking about how people who had mental illnesses were evolutionary throwbacks to ape ancestors and simply didn't have some of these human capacities because they were re-emerging their ape things. So here we see then within society there's this inequality, and especially it had to do with the mentally ill and criminals. And by the way, psychiatrists were on the forefront of the eugenics movement. They were really one of the driving forces in the eugenics movement. But not only would it apply within society, it also applied across societies, especially dealing with race. We were just discussing over dinner here about Darwin's own ideas, and Darwin did himself believe in the inequality of races. However, Ernst Haeckel, the leading Darwinist in Germany, was even more radically inegalitarian in his racial scheme. Here is a frontispiece to his very popular book, Natürliche Schöpfungsgeschichte, which means Natural History of Creation. And in that, he has 12 pictures here. And you notice the top one here is Indo-European. And then we have Asians, Mongol race, they called it at the time. Going down here to number 6, which is an African, a black African. And then notice number 7, then you start the primates. These first 6 pictures here are of human races. These next ones are primate species. And the caption to this particular illustration claimed that the distance between the highest human, that's number 1 here, and the lowest human, number 6 here, is higher, or bigger rather, than the distinction or difference between the lowest human and the highest primate. And notice how similar those are in facial features and such. The idea is here, these are real close, and these are further apart. You have actually 6 steps to get to here, and then just 1 step to the primate there. And he actually wrote that in the caption. In fact, Haeckel at one point claimed that the difference mentally between the lowest human and the highest human was greater than the distance between the lowest human and even a dog or an elephant. Haeckel also divided the human races into 12 species. Not only that, but he divided those 12 species into 4 distinct genera. So that's how inegalitarian he was in his racial scheme. And this is not totally unusual. Haeckel was extremely influential, for one thing, and won a lot of people over to his ideas, but there were many Darwinists preaching similarly this racial inegalitarianism. And here's an illustration to show that this hit the popular front as well. Here's a popular magazine in Germany with some German, this is during World War I, 1916. Here's some German soldiers, and they have captured a black African troop. The French used black Africans on the Western Front, And so here they've captured a black African troop, and they says, man, you're bringing him to Hagenbeck, aren't you? Hagenbeck was very famous in Germany for his zoo collections that he made in many parts of Germany. He said, man, you're bringing him to Hagenbeck, aren't you? He can't catch better gorillas in Africa than we can on the Western Front. And so again, we see the dehumanizing aspect here of this inegalitarianism as it's being practiced. And it's being practiced both relating to the races, but also toward individuals within a particular society. Okay? Second point, in addition to human inequality, we have moral relativism undermining human rights. And this is a prominent theme in many Darwinian thinkers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Darwin himself admitted that this was a consequence of his own views. In his autobiography, he wrote that one, quote, can have for his rule of life, as far as I can see, only to follow those impulses and instincts which are the strongest or which seem to him the best.
It's a stark reminder that these theories form the foundation of what is taught in American and global school systems concerning evolution. This is the narrative that is being propagated to shape our understanding of the world. When examining the term great and abominable church as mentioned in the Book of Mormon, which is frequently seen as a reference to the Catholic Church, it's worth noting the depiction of the persecution of the saints of the Most High. In the Book of Mormon it is written, and the angel said unto me, behold the formation of a church which is most abominable above all other churches, which slayeth the saints of God, yea, and tortureth them, and bindeth them down, and yoketh them with a yoke of iron, and bringeth them down to captivity. 1 Nephi 13:5. This passage clearly refers to the African American people and the history of the transatlantic slave trade, which is often misunderstood due to the narratives of European colonizers. This is a complex topic that I will explore further in a future video. There's no known observable process by which new genetic information can be added to an organism's genetic code, a necessary component for evolution from simple to complex life forms. Similarly, life arising from non-life has never been observed, challenging the foundations of evolutionary theory. So why would the church support ideas that seem to undermine Scripture? It's all about control. By promoting theories that challenge a literal interpretation of Scripture, the church maintains control over both religious and scientific narratives. This strategy could be seen as a form of intellectual control, similar to the concept of doublethink described in George Orwell's 1984. But this leads us to even more profound questions. What is the ultimate goal of this strategy? Why would an institution dedicated to preserving faith actively support ideas that seem to undermine it? And most importantly, what other truths about our people and our land are they hiding? Now, I would like to guide your attention to a fascinating source that sheds light on our discussion. Page 28 from the book, Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry, presents compelling theories about the origins of the ancient inhabitants of America. It suggests that America may have been peopled by various groups, including the 10 tribes, Phoenician Carthaginians, or even Atlanteans. It also draws parallels between the religious rites and symbols of ancient Egyptians and Americans, hinting at a shared cultural heritage. One particularly intriguing excerpt states, some have been so audacious to assert that America was peopled at an era antediluvian, and consequently not through Noah but by his ancestors. This challenges the conventional narrative and aligns with our discussions about the true identity of African Americans and our connection to the biblical lost tribes of Israel. The text further explores the possibility that America was not inundated at the deluge, suggesting that the Aborigines were antediluvians and the most ancient people on earth. This perspective offers a new lens through which to view our history and the land we call home. It's time for us to reclaim our history, our identity, and our birthright. We are the true Israelites, and this is our promised land. The evidence is all around us, written in the very land we walk on. Don't let them erase our story any longer. It's time to wake up. recognize our true heritage, and take back our narrative. Remember, family, knowledge is power. The more we uncover about our true history, the stronger we become. As always, stay up, family. Be on the lookout for part 2